be designing with a blank sheet. Like you'd be using components and you would be thinking modularly, you'd be using atomic design. And that's exactly what we're doing with React components is we're not going to come in here, right? And not think, one does not think modularly, there you go, right? Right. One does not think, I've never seen this show. So I hope this meme means something. Yeah. So that's what, right? You have to think in modules. You have to think in components. Just like we're not going to come in here and start typing line 1 and then go all the way down to line 71. Like that's a ridiculous approach, and that's it's just really not the way to think about it, and that's not the way to do it. And that's what components are. Okay, so I've always thought that. So that's my definition of how React wants to do components. Of course, you can always look at the official React documentation. But all that said, let's go to the course site and go to React.js. And then we're going to go into components and start working modularly. All right, so it's a modular way to build interfaces. Right? Long story short, like we had to do that before we had these systems like React. Right, and you can argue, you can get into the nerd fight whether or not React is a framework. A lot of people think of React as a library, right? A library that you can add to and a library that you can reuse. So why this example here is so good is each of these, right? So this is related to our data CMS mindset of content modeling. Well, what is the content model on this? The name, the title, the image. The name, the title, the image. You only want to make one component for the name, the title, and the image. And these get repeated, and that's where components are like a function factory, right? They're these factories to say, no matter how much raw material comes into the factory, in this case, the raw materials being the people of the employee directory, right? That the factory can keep spitting out widgets. So raw material comes in, the data, right? Data is a raw material, and the output, okay, is based upon the components, right? That's what we're making here. So for every single employee, you'd only have to make one template and the data comes in and just gets spit out, just like we would do in UX3 when we were making our UX portfolio. Like we don't want to have to copy and pasting is fine. I don't want to have to be the designer that has to copy and paste all of this data. And there is someone doing that right now. And I feel for them. I feel bad for them. It's like, really? You're copying and pasting? Other than being error prone, it's very time intensive. Okay. All right. So there's our big picture understanding of a component. Any questions on that? Are we good there? Thumbs? All right. So you're just trying to do this visual thing with code. That's all we're trying to do. Do this visual thing that we're really, really used to, right? Symbols, components with code. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at this first pen here. JSX. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. All right, here is an old one from previous classes. This pen is ancient, but what you can see here is we have our React app getting rendered into the DOM. Okay, if I can collapse this real fast, right? We still have our same React DOM, but instead, now I'm showing you this because this is what. So we get this component feature, but what's missing here? Well, we don't get the dynamic first name, last name. This is just placeholder text right here. So again, first name, last name, placeholder text, and this is a placeholder image. The other thing here is, can't this be broken down? So designers, for a second, right? Put on your design hats. How can this be broken down more modularly? Well, same thing, it's no different than this. Right. Well, how can this static mockup be? And this is the way it was for a while, right? It's like just cram everything into here. And it's like, well, we can break this down even further, right? So before, this was all up in here and all up in HTML. Oops, I broke this. Here, let me turn this off for just a second here. I'm just gonna delete all this. Okay. And what we're looking at here, before I completely break my template here, right, is this is the way it was before. And the designers had to take this and do this and do this and do this, right? And all right, so there's 4 employees, and now I got to make 4 of those. Oh, someone quit. I got to delete one. Oh, someone got hired. I got to add one. And that's not the method that we want to be using. And what we're doing is we're taking this static HTML right here, static HTML. Now I got to put everything back. Oh, good. Right. And what we're saying here is, all right, we want to use that same template. Okay. We want to use that same template. So watch when we cut that template out, and that's going to go away. Okay. We want to use that same template, but we want the machine to do what machines do best. Hey, machine, you count the number of employees. Hey, machine, you insert the names. I don't want to have to be responsible for typing someone's uniquely spelled name, like Manikoff, right? Like let the user type it. Let the user type it from the CMS, and then you, the designer, get to do what you do best: design. You get to design where the data goes, and you don't have to worry about the data because that's not your job. Your job is to understand how to design for the data. That's templating. All right, so now that we got that, I'm gonna leave that. Hopefully I didn't break that for future. Anyway, that's all right. All right, so there's your basics. So let's go ahead. Now we're gonna make a basic functional component. So this is where I'm at right now. All right, let's go ahead and pop this open. And we can take a look at this. Oh, I'm sorry, I should be in the master professor pen. Why don't y'all hop into there and we can break this down. And I know we're using these really boring examples. I know they're boring right now, but they're simple, right? A directory is a pretty simple way to understand this. All right, so our basic functional component, first we have to render something onto the page. So first off, let's make sure that this is working, right? And notice React is saying, I don't have anything called student, so this is gonna throw an error. Yeah. Well, we could always just make an H1 name. Yeah. All right, so there's the name, right, with the H1, and the styling is coming from the CSS, okay? And so what we don't wanna have to do is wrap this in a div, right? And then and this was fine for that first pen, but some of you submitted this for, you know, for your hometown and your bio, and this is perfectly acceptable. But this kind of defeats the purpose, right, of using React, right? Like, yes, it's outputting one component, but we can't reuse this part, right? We're basically now taking a website and cramming it between these 2 lines, and yeah, so that's not what we want. So what we want to do is actually start making these components. All right, so the first spatial functional component, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give it a name, and this is a React convention. This is a React convention, not a JavaScript convention. Is the component must start with a capital letter, right? And the component has to be self-closing, or otherwise the component doesn't work. Yep. So in this case, we're going to call it student. So now we got to come here. We're going to do this the old way and the new way, just because I need you to get used to seeing them both. So first, we're going to do let me get rid of this. The functional component of just function. I'm going to call this thing student, correct? This is an error because the component name needs to be all caps. The component name needs to be all caps, 3rd time. All right, so we have a function there. Whoops, sorry, I forgot my function syntax already. What is that? All right, left curly, right curly. All right, so there is our basic function definition. Now for this to work, right, if we return more than one thing, we have to have the return statement, okay? And what is a little bit odd at first syntactically is you got to have the curly braces there at the end, and we just need to get used to this, okay? So you're going to see this, okay? Typically it probably has a semicolon right there, but all this is pure JavaScript. This is React. Pure JavaScript, this is React, and React is basically a bunch of JavaScript expressions. All right, so now what we can do is we can come in here and continue to make that H1 of name first, okay? And this is going to be our component there. And now it's going to say name first, okay? And that's going to, whoops, it should be first and last, right? All right, so good. So then if we have more info like this, okay, first and last, we know from previous lectures, from the last 2 lectures here, that we have to wrap all of this into a wrapper of some kind, of a single output. Okay, this is going to give us more errors, going to give us more errors. And in this case, we're just going to wrap it in a div. Blah. Right. And so the thing to note here is we're having JavaScript write the DOM. Okay, from the previous 2 weeks. We're like, hey, JavaScript, help me write this because you can make this dynamic, right? Because HTML is great because HTML is static, right? But we need some dynamic features, and that's where JavaScript comes in. That's where React comes in, because we want this to be reactive. What's reactive about it? If a student gets added or removed from a class, right, that'll list correctly. Good there? Okay, so that's our basic functional component. Okay, stuff that we've all seen so far. So we've been using this the entire time. Otherwise, React gets kind of boring without these components. All right, so there's that syntax. The next syntax we're going to take a look at is the arrow function. Oh, I forgot the name of it. All right, so we got that, and all we need to do is just change some of the syntax right there. We still need that same return statement. So instead of doing function student, we're gonna store it inside of a variable, right? Const is a good one for this, right? Keep using const until you run into an error, right? This is immutable. It's probably not gonna change because right, what's gonna change is the number of times this is gonna use. What's gonna change is the template. I mean, right, but what I know it's confusing at first to say const is immutable by can't change. What you're trying to say is the template isn't going to change after you use it, right? And if that were the case, if you wanted to remove minor and major or add in hometown, that's when you would use let. For right now, we're going to use const. All right, arrow function. Right. And so just get used to seeing both. Okay, I already have my error there. Where's my syntax error? Left curly, right curly, return. It's somewhere in here. Here, I'll just paste it in. Oh, I spelled const wrong. Everybody see that? See? Cosnet. Cosnet. All right. All right, thumbs with me? Yeah, so just get used to being able to look at both and just go, oh yeah, that's the old way. Oh yeah, that's the new way. You're gonna go work somewhere and then they're gonna say, well, we type it this way. You're like, cool, whatever, dude. Okay, I got this. All right, so that is your basic functional component. All right, so now what we want to do is let's go ahead and start making this app. Okay, we took a look at basic functional component. All right, so before we make this app, let's go ahead and jump to the end. Okay, so we got this really basic app, right? And all this app does, and I'm gonna forget the code for a second. All this app does is give the native greeting and their name, right? The native greeting and their name, the native greeting and their name. That's all the app does. Right? It spits out native greeting and someone's name. So you could go to Dado, you can go to a website and say like, what is your country of origin? You would say Spain, and then say, what is your name? Jane, and then it would spit out the app would spit out Ola and Jane, okay, and etc. for the rest. And so that's what this app is doing, right? Very basic app. Now what we want to do is before we start building this app, I need us to get a refresher from the previous weeks about passing data into JSX. So let me pin this tab and pass data into JSX. All right. So to do that, we're going to use data attributes. Now, this is the first way I'm going to teach you to pass in data. The next way is called props or properties, and we'll get into that later on. But for right now, just understand that there's an attribute here that is acting as a pipeline, acting as a container, acting as a filter to bring in this data. All right, so inside here, right, we're going to store a variable called name, okay? And notice we use let, right? Because as we talked about in past class, is your name might change. You might get married. You might decide to change your name. You might add an emoji to your name. Has anybody added an emoji to their government name yet? Huh? You can do that. You can have symbols. Why not an emoji? Y'all don't care. I care greatly. Put this on my email. Emoji legal name. All right, show of hands. You think someone's done this yet? No? Can you legally have an emoji in your name? Oh, what do y'all think? Yes? No? Can you legally?
Think so?
Probably change your name. It'll go to some database. None of the databases can handle emoji. That's one good explanation. No one knows. Well, there's Prince. Rest in peace, Prince. Okay. So yeah, maybe. Oh, the hard one. What would your emoji name be? That'd be a fun one. All right, good. Now that we've solved that problem. All right, so that might change. Your let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and do just that. I'm gonna put an emoji there. Ah. Some of you are thinking, I should have picked track A. Too late. All right, let's see here. There. Oh, all right, that was good. Good. Okay, so that's why it's let, not const, because that might change. All right, so what we're doing here is we're storing this as a variable, and to bring it into the JSX expression, this is JSX right here, right? And this is, why is this on one line? Why doesn't it say at? Because it's only one thing. That's why. And in this case, it's going to use a curly brace, and this is going to reference this. Okay. All right. Any questions on our refresher about passing data into our template or passing data into JSX? All right, good from last week. All right. And again, if we call this something else, and of course breaks because it's looking for. Oh, by the way, CodePen uses React to do all of their UI, and they have a variable there called name, and they took it and it's named CodePen. And so if you ever wonder why CodePen shows up, it's because CodePen globally has the name of CodePen inside of their React, which I think is kind of fun. A lot of people get angry. They're like, why is CodePen, why is the word CodePen? Because they just think it's fun. So that's all. Not a lot of people like fun. So if you're against fun, this bothers you, but right, that's why we can do this. I wonder what other words are inside of, if you mean, you could sit here all day and come up with variable names like tree and see if CodePen has something for tree, but they don't. All right. There's name, so we're going to override the CodePen variable with our name. All right, so that's passing data into JSX. Okay, let's see here. Where was that? We're done with that. Done with that. Okay, step one in making a React template. Okay, first, step one is make a static template. I'm going to do this tedious task of removing everything, even turning off Babel. And when you design for a CMS, and when you design for any CMS, you make static templates first. If you really make static templates, you really make lorem ipsum. And what I mean by that is you just write HTML and CSS, maybe a little bit of JavaScript. Okay. And so what we want to do is do just that. So here's our template. Right here is the HTML. Whoops. And here is the CSS. Right? And there's nothing dynamic involved in this. And you basically go to your design team and say, hey, what do you think of this? Your design team says, it's all right. Right? And you'll come in and go, what else can I do to this? Right? How do you make it italic? Is it italic? No, font. Which one makes that italic? Font style there. Oh, font, we get font stretch, right? So there's our font style italic, and your design team says, oh, awesome, let's run with this, right? And so this is the first part. This is literally the first part. And a lot of people think this is where our jobs as web designers ends. Like, well, I made you the template. Now you go make it active. You go make it real. You go put real data in there. And they're going to look at you like, no, that's definitely your job. Right? You make the templates. You make the pathways for the real data to come in to be used. All right. So step one, we good on step one? You make static template. You make static template. Just make a static template, right? This is a large part. And again, this is the fun part. This is where you should spend the majority of your time, right? Is in the design part. right? The getting data in and out of your templates, that should go fast, really fast. Right? All right, so there's step one, just render stack template. All right, step two is, what is this? What did I say for step two here? We're going to reactify this or begin to make it dynamic. So the first thing we need to do is say, hey, we need to start turning this static template, which I'll just comment out there, right? And we need to turn this into an actual application. And now we go back to the tedious parts of adding in React, adding in React DOM, right? And just for good safe measure, adding into Babel. Again, your browser does not understand React. Browsers only understand pure HTML, pure CSS, and pure JavaScript. And all these other languages, including Markdown, including CoffeeScript and LiveScript, right? They all get transpiled, right? So what we're writing is basically syntactic sugar, right? We're finding a nice way to write something, right? And then Babel and everybody else is transpiling that into pure JavaScript. All right, and that's happening mostly behind the scenes. What is going on there? Okay. All right, so there's Babel. All right, are we ready to do work? Step two. All right, then we have our normal React DOM render. Can I skip over this part right here? You all got this? We know this from our homework. Right, like run React DOM, spit out an element, right? The what, this is the what, and this is the where. Okay, all right. All right, so now you get all that. There is that step. Where are we? Step one, we took care of step one. We took care of step two, which I didn't put it into. Y'all, I forgot to put it in the professor pen. All right. All right, production, the DOM, Babel. What am, oh, duh. I'm missing the actual application itself. All right. Blah, there we go. Okay, so there is our Hello app. That's where all of our styling is coming from. Okay, and we can just keep changing that as we like. All right, now what we want to do is go to step three. Okay, so step two is get ready to make a dynamic template. Step three is make the parent component. Now, do you always need to have a parent component? Well, if you only have one component, it's just a parent with no child. And so for this, I'm gonna make a parent and a child component just so we can see the value in this. And the value, and again, back to this awesome, is this is the parent component right here, header, child component, right? Search these employee listings, right? I'm sorry, employee list is the parent, right? Every employee, the actual individual singular list item is the child. In this case, there are 6 children. Right? And so that's what we're doing here. But before we make the children, we got to make the parent. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna, first off, let's go ahead and name our app. In this case, we decided to name it Greeting, and we're gonna follow React convention that it has to be in all caps and it has to be self-closing. So capital G on Greeting, right? Otherwise, React should throw an error, see? All right, React is throwing another error saying, hey, you don't have this thing defined. Like calm down, React. Okay. What's another way of saying calm down in your parlance? What's the Urban Dictionary way of saying calm down? Chillax?
Chill out, buddy.
Chill out. And some other ones. All right. All right, so now we're going to make this thing. What was that?
Simmer down.
Right, simmer down. Const greeting. Okay. And what was my, oh, what did I decide to use? Oh, arrow functions. Oh, I had to go back and change all this. All right. Again, later on, right, we're actually going to be passing in data, right? Right now, our argument is empty, but later on, we're going to be passing in props or properties, and this is defined by React. This says, give me all the data, right? Right now, we're going to do individual data of name, and then of individual data of greeting, okay? because we're only passing in 2 pieces of data. But later on, what you don't want to have to do is like do hometown too, right? And this gets unwieldy. And so React came up with a convention called props. Colin, why are you telling me this? Because I need you to get ready for props. Okay. All right, so there's that curly brace, right? And what do I need to type here? So I can return something. Return. We need the return statement. Right. Left paren, right paren, all the good stuff sits inside of there. Okay, so right there, that is our template from our HTML, right? This was all that stuff that was commented out of here. That was our static template. Right? You're going to be designing these templates, and you're just going to be copying and pasting your templates. You're going to design it in Figma, go build it in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and you're just going to break it up into pieces, right? And the developers are going to say, oh, I need the header. I'm like, here's the header component. Oh, I need the footer. Here's the footer component, right? And otherwise, no one wants, here is my entire website design, right? You want to give people pieces, and you want to be modular. Right, so inside of this, we're going to have a greeting, and an easy way to do this, I always just put one thing. This is one of my paranoid Android things. So like just spit out one thing, right? If I can spit out one thing, I can do multiple things. Oh, good. Yeah, so do that. Pro tip. Okay. Also, CodePen and any of these tools, these build tools, they're sometimes buggy, and they're sometimes, if you give it too much to do, it can get problematic. So, you know, go slow is my advice. All right, so then we're going to simply take this entire thing, and I do this quite often. I'll take my entire design and go bloop, and just drop it into a single React statement or a single React parent component, and just throw it all in there just to see that it works, right? And then from here, begin to break it down, and that's not a bad approach too. All right, so if we take a look at this, right, we can see that this is the parent of greeting, right? Here is the parent of greeting. Now, if you look at this, how many children should this parent of greeting have? I'm gonna rock back and forth, like what I tell my daughter not to do with her chair. I can see her right now. Stop rocking in your chair. Jeez. Sorry. I'm gonna put the camera on her so you can see her rocking her chair. All right, how many children does this greeting should have?
3.
3, right? But we only want to make one template. So that's correct. In this case, there should be 3, but we only want to make one template, right, for each one of these 3 items. Okay, so we have this parent element that we call it greeting, right? And inside this is going to be another child component. So we're going to put a child component, a single child component inside of a single parent component, right? And a parent can have multiple children. Okay, but for right now, we're just going to do a 1-family household. I mean, 2-family household, right? 1 parent, 1 child. Okay. What did I call that component? I think I called it message or something. What the heck did I call this? All right. So now we're on step 4, create a child component. Okay, so to do that, we're going to do the exact same step of composing components. So we need to come down here, and you can put either or, but just logically speaking, I mean, it reads better to put the children below the parent, right? Again, nerd fight, you know, wherever you go work, they're going to tell you that how they do it. All right, what do we call this one? We called it message, okay? All right, all capital M, capital first letter. And we're going to run that same thing here, right? At this point, takes no arguments. Okay. All right, so then we're going to get rid of all that. And a good way to do this is cut that out, okay? And what I need you to figure out is what is going to go right there. And I think Stephanie has the answer, don't you, Stephanie? Nope. All right. Mariah, you got the answer? What's going to go inside those question marks there? Who's got this? Can you hear me still? Am I here?
Can hear you.
If this is, cannot hear me?
Can.
Oh, thank you. If this is the parent, right, and we created this child element called message, okay, and there it is right there. There's our single component. Okay, if we collapse that, you can see that we have two components here, right? The parent greeting and the child. And we cut out all of that, okay? And this is where hopefully the light bulb comes on, okay? We have this single child element. So it's outputting all of the question marks that I put in there, right? It's doing just that. Okay? It's outputting all these emojis. Okay, there we go, right? It's outputting all of that. Right? So what needs to go in place of these emojis? If greeting is the parent and message is the child,
The message.
perfect. Right, that's it. So now we can come in here and go, yo, message, M-A-S, and let that sink in for a second, right? You are basically, right, you're basically making your own components at this point. Right? And that is awesome. I got a syntax error, but don't worry about that, right? The point we're trying to make here is this is the parent of greeting, right? And it can return one thing, okay? And we're gonna take this, okay? And we're gonna drop it in right there. Okay, in this case, this is all still static right now. It's all still static. Right? And so we're gonna, the last step is to make that stuff dynamic. For right now, right, we want it to be static. Okay, something. Oh.
So you can declare a variable after you call it in the program?
That got cut off. Can you say that again?
You can declare a variable after you call it in the program?
You can declare a variable after you call it in the program?
Like you're not defining message until after you've already called message within greeting.
Yeah.
You just can, with all, like, even outside of React, you can just do that?
It's plain old JavaScript to do that.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, no. Web 2, like you can make a function, you can put a function anywhere. Right. It's go back to get a refresher on order of execution.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Because Evan, what's happening here is the compiler gets to here, without making this Web 2 lecture here, the compiler gets to here, right? And it says, all right, hold on to this. Okay. And then it comes in here at this function, says, hold on to this. And then comes down here and goes, all right, now I got to start putting out my stuff. And so then it goes to here. It says, go to greeting, get all this stuff. And once it gets into here, it goes to get me the child message. And then it loads that. Right. Then it puts it onto the page. That's the order of execution there. So as long as it follows the order of execution, it's okay.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Right. So remember, the fences say like hold on to that. Right. The compiler is getting ready to run this, and it's going to skip.
So everything doesn't compile and load at the same time, lagging the browser, right? So it doesn't just kind of try and load everything all at once. Correct.
Short answer, no.
Okay.
Yeah. Very, very short answer. No. Good. All right. Yeah. If we want to talk about both Codecademy and your Learn JavaScript Online have really the sections on order of execution are both very good. And if you just need a refresher on how they're executed, yeah. But it's unlike HTML and CSS, which just takes everything and squashes it into one single file, right? And that's why stuff just shows up on your screen, is because it's like, well, if even there's an error, I'm gonna squash everything together and make dirt soup, and hopefully like your a site comes out. Yeah. I'm trying not to go any longer into it, but if you want, we could talk more about order execution later. All right, so this is the parent, and then it goes here and reads in the message of names. Now, this is only going to show one greeting and one name styled from this CSS loaded into this HTML. And it's going to load this in just one time. But later on, what we're going to see is, well, our CMS has one greeting, and our CMS has two greetings, and our CMS has has multiple greetings, just like the employees, right? One employee gets hired, one employee gets fired. Okay, it dynamically knows to run this single line of code message just once, right? One for every instance, right? One for every instance that there needs to be. All right, good in this part. Like you want this right here. This basically says if my CMS has 3 entries in there or 3 records in there, I forgot what data calls them records. Yeah, if data says I have, they're basically rows, also rows on a spreadsheet, right? So in UX3, right, we're doing those dynamically loading in our Google Sheets, right? We have 3 projects. They're gonna only show this 3 times. Yeah. All right, we good in this on this before we get to the last part. Good here. All right, this is probably the fundamental shift in how we're thinking about all of this. Is we have this parent, we're loading in this message. I mean this child. All right, so now that we got this, the 5th step is like, all right, we know it's working. We know the template knows how many things there are, but now the template needs to actually use real data. Yeah. All right, so to do that, it actually is probably easier than you might think. So we're gonna just do one. I'm gonna comment this out. In this case, we're gonna pass in the data. Here, I'll just do this. Whoops, I broke it. Right, in this case, we're just gonna bring in one piece of data at a time. Now, what we're doing right here is, the only reason I'm showing you this is because it's the easiest way to understand data coming in, right? If you just bring it in with the element, okay? And later on, it gets a little bit more complicated when we bring it in from Data CMS, when we bring it in from the Star Wars or the Pokemon API, when we bring it in from an external source. But right now, the source of the data is inline, internal with the element itself. All right, so this is the name, Jane. That's the name of the attribute there. This is the JSX attribute, okay, and greeting. And so notice it's going to keep saying name and greeting here. But what we want to replace greeting with is, all right, for lack of time, the curly brace of greeting. This is the variable there. And then we want the curly brace of name, which is the variable there. And so there's that span, there's that H1, hit save on this. And then we're just going to wash and rinse 3 different times for this. Okay. All right. Oh, I forgot to pass it in as props. All right. So notice it's not getting passed in. So just like any argument, right, we have to pass it in the actual parameters. Yeah. Just like any function, right? Just like a random function. It's like randomize this. Randomize what? In this case, show this. Show what? In this case, we're going to show greeting. Okay. And we're going to show name. And what this is illustrating right here, let me go ahead and break this on multiple lines here. Give me an error. No. All right. What this is showing here is great. This is kind of cumbersome for 2 pieces of data, right? What is the object that we're going to be using in the future to pass in all the data related to it, right? So in our data CMS, we created a record. The record has your username, the time of day it was created, the date it was created, the last time it was updated, right? And that's all that data that we want to be able to access. Right. Anybody remember?
Props.
Props, right? And that's what we need to get used to. Okay, it's just like the short for properties, props. But in this case, we're not passing in props. We're not passing in everything. We're just passing in these 2 things of name and greeting. Let's see where my syntax error is. Oh, forgot my curly braces here. I don't know why I'm making these sounds. I love how I copy and paste my own code because it's fun that way. Okay, so there's Ola and there is Jane. Okay, I just needed to refresh it. All right, so now that we have this template, now that it's using real data, we can reuse this thing over and over again, right? So now let's see here. Edgar is no longer there. All right, someone give me a country greeting and a name for that country. I'm gonna start with mine, right? So there's Pukong, and he's from Sawadee. So I can't spell that. There you go. That's my origin and country of greeting. Anybody else? Do you have one, dear?
What?
Do you have a country and a greeting from your country? Can you give me a country?
France.
France. All right. Can you give me a French name?
A French name?
Yeah.
Pierre. I'm just thinking of.
Pierre. Okay, good.
I'm just thinking of French artists that Mom from the Art Go Draw
Perfect.
game.
Thank you.
Yay!
All right.
High five.
Can you
I know
give me
you're not
another?
good at them.
Can you give me another one? Did you just hear her? She said, "I'm not good at giving high fives."
He's not very good at it. At what? What am I supposed to be doing again?
Give me another piece of data.
Look it up on the internet. That's what the internet's for.
Never mind. Thank you.
I did the best I could.
All right. Anybody else got something for me? Cold as trying to do something for Antarctica. All right.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you. All right. My spouse is from the islands. We're having a aloha. Kamehameha. Kamehameha. I might have spelled Kamehameha wrong. Kamehameha. There. All right. Good. That's where we get to be dynamic. Whether this is 3 or 3,000 entries, that is React components. Good. Check. All right.
I'm not sure what I did wrong, but I'm only getting the greetings to show up. The names are not.
Can you post your pen? Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop sharing, and we'll go from there. All right. If you're good, you're welcome to exit.